Chapters 346 to 347. Needless to say, neither Shibuki nor Fu was prepared for Tsunade's statement. The difference between the two was that while Shibuki, for the first time since Rei met the boy, dropped all pretenses and outwardly freaked out, his head snapping towards Tsunade with a wide-eyed look full of bewilderment and disbelief, Fu seemed to totally blank out. "What? You don't want to be adopted?" Tsunade mock-frowned at the utter lack of reaction from the Jinchuriki. Contrary to everyone's expectations, the perpetually cheerful girl actually became quiet instead of instantly jumping at the offer. Shibuki would have never thought he would see Fu being silent. He, however, did note that the girl threw him a brief questioning and, much to his chagrin, almost hopeful look as if asking what to do. It was obvious from the longing in her eyes that Fu wanted to cheerfully exclaim acceptance, but Shibuki also understood that Fu, of all people, knew how painful it would be if this hope of hers was betrayed. And the girl probably did have at least a small measure of loyalty, if not to the village, then to him. "Fu, it's fine." Shibuki reluctantly assuaged the girl's worries in a weak tone. He knew he would be losing his Jinchuriki today anyway, and he already gained some deals, so there was no real need to make this more painful and longer than it needed to be. "They are really here to offer you a new home. A home where you won't be discriminated against because of being a Jinchuriki." Tsunade pipped in before Fu could process what Shibuki told her and come up with her own doubts. Fu's expression scrunched, and the gears in her head were visibly turning, if a bit slowly, at that admission. "Did I perhaps misread the girl? She looks similar to Naruto, so I went with the reckless, knuckle-headed approach, but—" Tsunade was starting to worry that her blunt blurting out what was going to happen was not working as intended. But Fu's pondering expression suddenly eased up, and a small, listless smile appeared on her face. "Is there really such a place?" she carefully asked, trying to muster up her usual facade of cheerfulness, fidgeting from nervousness. "Yes." This time it was Rei who answered. "You will even have some people in a similar situation like you to help you get settled down in Yozora." Tsunade's eyes slightly widened and gained a subtle calculating glint as she wondered why he revealed that while Shibuki's eyes snapped towards Rei, as the revelation they had other Jinchuriki hit him like a train. His mind started quickly going through the information available to him, trying to find out which. He only managed to guess they had Nibi, but Rei sounded as if there were people, as in multiple. With the corner of his eyes, Rei noticed how deep in his thoughts Shibuki was and inwardly smirked. That should force him to investigate. And we all know that a small-time village such as Takigakure is shit at covert investigation considering their spy infestation problem. All 5 major hidden villages will know about this in less than a week, which means Akatsuki will get the memo in under a week and a half. Let them waste their time looking into Yozora. Less possibility of them interfering in the upcoming conflict this way. He chuckled, wondering to what extent his little ploy would work. Well, it was just a few simple words. It certainly didn't hurt him uttering them, so even if it had a minuscule effect, he won't be losing anything. Hearing Rei's words, Fu's face brightened. If there really were others with the same problem as she, then she really might find some friends. "Then I want to go with you," she exclaimed, eyes sparkling with expectations. It didn't take long for Fu to pack her belongings, which were in no way plentiful, and after she said her goodbye to Shibuki, who was practically the only person in Takigakure with some level of care for the poor girl, she was off with Rei and Tsunade. Fu was perplexed. This entire thing just happened too fast. From getting a message to come to Shibuki's office to being offered to be adopted and then being told to pack her things because they are leaving in an hour. She surmised her mind just didn't catch up to all the implications yet. A part of her was on the edge, thinking this might be a trap, while another part of her was berating her for being silly, that Shibuki would never allow her to leave with them if it was indeed so. A quite big part of her hoped it was all true, while another more realistic part was skeptical after all her experiences in Takigakure. As they were walking on the road, getting further and further away from the place where she spent her entire life, the distraught Fu decided to once again make sure this was not just a dream. "Are you really adopting me?" she asked with some difficulty. It was a ridiculous concept. Fu was almost 13, meaning almost an adult according to the ninja rules. She didn't need to be adopted, and yet she craved a family. This was important to her. It wasn't the dark-skinned woman who answered her, however. "Don't worry." The man, Rei, smiled at her, causing her to duck her head a bit. "While Nadetsu doesn't intend to adopt you herself," and that was apparently not the correct thing to say, judging by how Fu stiffened, "there are two people, Jinchuurikis of 2- and 3-tailed beasts, who are quite eager taking you in." He finished and chuckled at the deer in the headlights expression Fu was giving him. "They recently had a small firecracker of a daughter, so you will also have a younger sister if you accept becoming a part of their family." Tsunade interjected, making Fu double as speechless as before. "Is it really fine?" Fu eventually muttered in a quiet and worried tone. "I wouldn't want to be a bother." Since it was not really a question but a small mutter under her nose, neither Rei nor Tsunade deemed it important to answer Fu's quiet pondering. Nothing they would tell the girl now will reassure her. Only experiencing it for herself would alleviate her worries. To be honest, they didn't really need Fu for her combat potential or her Biju. Having Nibi and Sanbi was good enough considering that Ichibi, Rokubi, and Kyubi were basically under their command too. Getting Nanabi was not required. The only reason why Tsunade and Rei went to Takigakure was indeed to have a nice date. Tsunade just remembered her threat to Takigakure as she was planning the date, and it spiraled from there, resulting in the current situation. Well, giving the pitiful girl a family could be counted as their good deed for the year, so there was that. As they walked on the road, both Rei and Tsunade suddenly stopped, causing Fu, who was caught in her thoughts, to bump into Rei's back with a startled yelp. "Come out!" Tsunade lazily said, aiming her eyes at a particular tree on the side of the road. "I'd grade your hiding 8 out of 10, but you guys are not really that good." 4 figures appeared in front of them in the middle of the road. Both Tsunade and Rei instantly recognized them, and when they saw the annoyed scowl the red-headed boy was sporting, let's just say they got this urge to mess with him. "You are our escort?" Rei asked, and got 3 sets of deadpan looks in return that clearly asked if he was being serious. He knew them. They knew him. The answer was obvious. Alas, his question was not aimed at the owners of these 3 pairs of eyes, but at the clueless redhead. "Yes, you are late," the redhead stated in a monotonous voice, causing Rei to feel almost sorry for him as he saw Tsunade's lips twitch. Tsunade amusedly snorted before rolling her eyes and saying, "Bitch, please! We are your clients. We decide if we are late or not." The redhead almost popped a vein. The red-headed young man was clearly barely keeping himself from retorting, if the massive frown and narrowed eyes plastered on his face were any indications. It was ever so obvious to Rei that he did not deal with clients often, and this was just a special circumstance. Rei lifted his eyebrow at the 3 companions of the man, causing them to give him an apologetic smile which made him blink in realization. "Wait. So, he really has no idea who we are?" He shot the redhead, who was glaring at Nadetsu, an incredulous look before his lips twitched in amusement. "Who would have thought they would send Akasuna no Sasori as our bodyguard?" Rei quipped, earning himself 2 male groans and 1 female chuckle from Sasori's companions. His remark did its job superbly as Sasori stopped having a stare-off with Tsunade and gave Rei an appraising look. Not a moment later, however, the tension in the air as if drained and Sasori's face became blank as he donned his professional face and nodded at Rei. "Much to my misfortune, I was ordered to take these 3 genins." He slowly leaned his head in the direction of his three companions. To the Chunin exams in Konoha and complete this escort mission on the way. He said in an even and monotonous voice with just a small hint of displeasure. Tsunade snorted and crossed her hands on her chest. She knew she nor Rei requested this mission. When she saw just who was blocking their path, it was obvious why Pakura seemed so pleased when she heard about their date in Takigakure and that they intend to walk to Konoha from there. I will have to kick her ass during one of our spars. This is blatant gloating. She is basically showing off her Genin team to me, knowing I have nothing that could match it among Konoha's teams. Tsunade understood the subtle dig for what it was. Sasori forcefully ignored Nadetsu's snort and continued speaking. I am Sasori. The fan-wielding girl is Temari. The boy in the cat suit is Kankuro, and the one with the sand gourd is Gara. We will make sure nothing happens to you on your journey to Konoha. It was really hard to stop his lips from twitching for Rei as he watched Sasori conducting himself in the best professional manner he could. It was obvious he definitely did not want to be here and wanted to be done with the mission as fast as possible. Rei really tried, he really did. But it was just far too good of an opportunity not to troll him. Inclining his head at the three Genins, Rei smiled. That's good to hear. We really needed somebody to carry our shopping bags. He started in a serious tone. You see, I and Nadetsu are planning to stop in every single town along the road for sightseeing. According to Nadetsu, she doesn't get many chances to travel, so she decided to use every opportunity she can to shop around. I am sure you will keep us safe during the following days. You have my gratitude, he said in a faux, grateful tone, and just watched as Sasori's eyes started to slightly widen in a barely veiled horror when he heard that Rei could almost discern the colorful curses aimed at Pakura. The redhead must have been using in his head from his disgruntled eyes as he barely kept himself from spluttering in indignation while Tsunade guffawed at Sasori's misfortune, shooting Rei a mirthful look. I didn't know I wanted to go on a shopping spree. Her eyes sparkled in amusement. Well, now you do. Rei's eye smile conveyed, causing her to almost burst out in laughter straight in Sasori's barely hidden sour expression. To be honest, she was somewhat pissed at Sasori's attitude. He and his hate for being left waiting. If she knew they would be waiting for her and Rei here, she would make it her mission to stop at a tea house before leaving Takigakure and leave them hanging for another 2 hours at the very least. He should be blaming Pakura for this. Funnily enough, Sasori wanted to hurry to Konoha because he wanted to meet and thank Tsunade Senju for making the procedure to turn his puppet body back into a human one. He didn't like being delayed since he, as an accomplished medic in his own right, knew exactly how tough and impossible that feat was and how much effort it most likely took for Tsunade to create this method. He had nothing but utmost gratitude and reverence for the woman. I understand, Sasori ground out, his eyes glaring at Nadetsu, who was the source of the upcoming impromptu shopping trip through the cities along the way. Stupid, arrogant, self-centered, rich bint, he mentally added. Now then, Rei turned towards the three Genins and asked, How are you three? Realizing that Rei didn't intend to keep their relationship secret from Sasori, they instantly got less standoffish. Gaara's tense posture relaxed. Kankuro's scowl eased almost into a grin. And Temari, well, Temari disappeared in a burst of shunshin and glomped Rei into a tight embrace. Wait! What the heck is happening? Sasori looked between Gaara, Kankuro, and Temari, glued to their client's chest in bewilderment. Did his team know the client or something? Rei awkwardly patted Temari's head, making her go rigid. It's been a while. How is your wind mastery? He asked, looking at the girl and noticing the profound blush she tried to hide by burrowing her head into his chest. I got better, Sensei, Temari subduedly answered. I missed you, though, she added, and her hold on Rei became a bit more possessive. Tsunade lifted an eyebrow at that. At first, she was utterly shocked that the blonde glomped on Rei. She really did not expect it. After all, she had no idea her husband had time to frolic with young girls while she was hard at work, managing a ninja village for him. But when she noticed how panicked and utterly lost Rei looked, she instead grinned and enjoyed his dismay. No. From what she was seeing, Tsunade realized that her husband had no frigging idea what the heck was going on, or that the girl's small crush on him had grown into a not-so-small one after he deliberately distanced himself from her. If I remember correctly, his words were that it was creepy, seeing a small girl eyeing him with starstruck, expectant eyes full of determination. Looks like his plan totally backfired, though. Tsunade inwardly chortled and patted the head of Fu, who was awkwardly standing next to her. Instead of making the fangirl's crush fade with time, the distance just increased it. If that wasn't hilarious, then Rei's helpless face as he realized this fact certainly was. And it also explains why Pakura is so hell-bent to push the girl in Rei's path. It's basically the exact same situation as with Konan and Izumi. Tsunade shook her head in amusement, deciding to enjoy the show. Sensei? Sasori thought in confusion, trying to piece together what the heck was going on. He read Tamari's file. All of it. Even the classified one that contained her ANBU career. There was nowhere mentioned she had a teacher for the wind element. You will show me how much you advanced during our trip to Konoha, then. Rei slightly calmed down and decided to just wing it. Sure. Tamari pulled a bit away, just enough so she could look Rei in the eyes. I made many new jutsu. I will definitely manage to hurt you, she exclaimed with a small blush creeping up on her cheeks. Hearing her, Sasori's eye twitched. Oi, we are here to protect them, not to her. You wish. Rei smirked at the girl in his arms. I do. Tamari pouted. Eh? Sasori raised his hand before speechlessly dropping it back, not knowing what to do. I was just... ignored? You do? Rei tilted his head, not expecting Tamari's reply. Good. At least I'm not the only one confused here. Sasori released a small, relieved sigh. I will get the promised date, Tamari stated, her blue eyes full of resolve. Even Tsunade lifted her eyebrow at that. How does harming the client get you a date? Sasori inwardly pondered, his confusion only growing. Oh, Rei exclaimed as he remembered what she was talking about. That's some really old promise you are swinging at me, Mari-chan. He jokingly chided. Promise is a promise, Tamari firmly stated, but her gaze seemed quite uncertain and questioning, as if she was asking a silent question. Promise is a promise. An amused voice repeated in Rei's head, earning itself a mental nudge from Rei, causing it to retreat with mirthful laughter. I guess I did promise. Rei nodded in acceptance of his fate. What did the past me think when making this promise? Hurt me and you get a date? Seriously, past me. That wasn't the brightest moment of my life. I give up. Let's just accept that they know each other and that Tamari trying to injure our client in some twisted attempt at flirting with him will be supremely annoying in the following days. Sasori tiredly sighed and rubbed his forehead to prevent the arising headache. He threw a look at Kankuro, silently informing him he was on the sister-watching duty from now on, but the boy just lazily shrugged. He would try Gaara. If he wasn't certain, the kid would just ignore him. The youngest was for some reason oddly fixated on protecting his extremely scary and violent sister that did not need any protection. Sasori inwardly lamented his fate. Really, he just had to get the most handful team into his care. I really need a moment of peace, just me and my puppets. He wistfully shook his head. Akasuna no Sasori. We have come for your head. Two figures abruptly appeared in front of the group, shattering Sasori's heartfelt desire to pieces. You gotta be kidding me. Sasori robotically turned his deadpan gaze at them, and instantly noticed it was his past colleagues from Akatsuki as he got the sudden urge to scream himself hoarse at some unwitting poor sod.